mute button.
Legendary Mark Stein, welcome to 69 Faces of Rock. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing really good, Mark. How are you today?
I'm good and enjoying that great Chicago weather. Mark, I always viewed you as a Hammond virtuoso, but I was quite overjoyed to hear you take a vocal lead on a Badfinger song. How did that come about?
Oh, that was so much fun, man. Yeah, Cleopatra Records from time to time, they do like tributes to some of the great artists, and they'll hire like Rick Springfield and myself, and just Rick Wakeman and all these cats to pick a certain song, or they'll say that we want you to do this track. I think mine was the title track, No Matter What.
That's right.
Right. So yes. They sent me a track. And they said, just try to stick to the original as much as possible, but be creative as well. So I went in and recorded the track. And I think it was Joey Mollin's voice was on there. And I was trying to follow his voice, but by doing that, I couldn't relax and be myself if they wanted me to be creative. So I just kind of muted his voice and I just sang it as if it was my own song, and that's what happened. And I got excited about it because I thought it came out really well. And when I had the file sent back to the producer, I said, oh man, I told my wife, I said, hope they're not going to get angry because I completely did my own vibe to it. So it was like my single or something. And they got back to me and they said, wow, it sounds awesome. Great job. And I was really relieved right there. So it was really cool.
When did you find your voice? I mean, you're not a singer but now you are. When did you find your voice as a vocalist?
What do you mean? I've been the lead singer of Vanilla Fudge since the late 60s.
I know, but this is like taking the lead in such an odd way. I see another side of you I never did see before.
Oh, well, there's lots of different sides of me. I do that. I have my solo album out now. There's a Light, which is the singer-songwriter, social commentary guy, and patriot and lover boy and all that stuff all in one album.
So let's get into this album. So not long ago, after that Badfinger adventure, you released a solo album, There Is a Light. How did these songs come about?
Well, I had a collection of songs in the can from some movie, Rock on the Wall, that I had produced. It was the movie was about rock music's influence, on the fall of communists and the Berlin Wall, and it did have a profound effect when rock music started, being heard by those behind the Iron Curtain. So I had some songs on there that were never really heard by anybody except for those who saw the movie, and it wasn't like a global monster release. So they were kind of like fresh tracks. And, and I had some social commentary songs like Racism and All Lives Matter. And the latest song that I had written was We Are One, which was a reflection when the pandemic was about 6 weeks old. I was inspired to write that song. And I just had this collection of songs, and I got together with some of the folks over at Deco Records, and they really liked my material, and we put a solo album together. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how that happened.
The album has a very universal theme: hope, unity, concern, and redemption. Tell me what was going inside your head when you were putting all these songs together.
Well, songs like Racism. I was basically watching the news one morning, and I saw these two infants, a white kid, maybe 5 years old, and a black kid. They were both holding hands and walking to school together, and they were hugging and happy and giving each other a kiss. And I'm just saying, wow, look at these kids. Why is it when they grow up, they're going to have to experience this thing called racism? But right now, it's just natural love towards each other. And I had this idea to write this song. Ever see a black child walking with a white child on their way to school, smiling at each other like a sister and a brother, laughing at the grown-up fools because they're way too young. Their life has just begun to follow the golden rule of hating one another. Of course, their skin's a different color, growing up in a world so cruel. Then the story goes on, and the hook comes in, racism, and I think it's a really powerful track. And people are digging it. It's a controversial song, along with another song called "All Lives Matter," which I also wrote about when there was that incident in Missouri, when one of the I forgot exactly what city it was, but it was when all the cops were getting a lot of bad press, and they were standing in front of the microphone, all these police officers in the bright blue uniforms. And again, I was looking at the TV and I said, wow, blue lives matter, white lives matter, and yeah, black lives matter to God. He is our creator. And I wrote this song in a spiritual sense. I went on to write this song called All Lives Matter. And actually, it's been getting a lot of airplay in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. My album actually went to #1 on one of the stations there, which was pretty exciting based on requests and airplay. So they were playing it, a whole bunch of stations in that Pennsylvania area are on the album, which is pretty cool.
We Are One was certainly a tremendous song and the first single. Were you able to reach the audience you had in mind with this song?
We're still working on it.
What's
still
the
working
feedback
on
so
it.
far?
Hey,
What's the feedback so far?
people love the song. It's been played in a lot of social media outlets, and the response has been one of high emotion. I wrote it that way, and it's been received that way. I wrote the song because, if you recall, when the pandemic first came out, I think we were all in a state of disbelief. After about 4 or 5 weeks, it was like we couldn't even shake hands with our neighbor or our children. Everybody was afraid with this horrible, super contagious COVID thing that was starting to permeate and destroy this earth. And I had this thing come over me when I sat down at the piano. And to me, I said, wow, we had so much time to get it right, and we never did. And to me, it was almost like a karmic thing towards humanity. And we are one under God, under the sun, just these lyrics came out.
The word emotion, that keeps popping up in my head each time I hear your record. So it's a very spiritual album with great message, I have to say.
Thank you. Yeah.
Your latest single, Let's Pray for Peace. Now, again, It's very timely with what's going on in Ukraine. And you wrote that song and released that before even that happened.
I did.
Yeah. So what comments can you give on that song?
Let's Pray for Peace. I wrote a number of years ago during all the terrorist outbreaks around the world. And, the first time I actually played it live was with Vanilla Fudge at the Sweden Rock Festival, of all places, to play a ballad like that with that kind of a message. And there was some folks saying, well, I don't know if it's a good idea, because it's just like a heavy rock and a heavy metal crowd. I don't know if this song is gonna, go over well, but I was compelled to do it. That was the first time I sang the song. And I remember dedicating it to the people of Paris, who just had a major terrorist attack, the people of Belgium and everybody in Scandinavia. And I went and sang the song. And basically, it's just piano, strings, and a little acoustic guitar and bass. There's no drums on it. It's a very open, simple song with a simple message. And the song went over really well. I think people were taken by it. And it was really cool. And from then on, I was playing it at all the shows around the world. And now, with the new video, which is dedicated to the people of Ukraine, the video is out. And when you see the Let's Pray for Peace video, after the video is over, at the bottom, there's a link where you can make donations to UNICEF, who's going to send all the money over to the children of Ukraine and their families during this horrific war. So yeah, I mean, it seems like the song is seems to be always relevant.
The album also includes few covers from the Rascals and the Temptation. Why such choices?
Well, I was asked by the producer of the film, Rock on the Wall, if I could go in and produce some music, and Ball of Confusion was one of the favorite songs that, went with the theme of the movie. So that's how that happened. The same thing with People Gotta Be Free. So I put together a bunch of really talented musicians in South Florida. And we went in and, we had a couple of days. It was a great session. And I went in and recorded those songs along with a couple other originals I had. We Are Survivors is one of the songs, and Break It Down is another song, all from the movie. And we all put them on the album because There's a Light has got a theme, even though it's a social commentary again, and patriotism and songs of love, and it just has like a common thread and a common theme, in a spiritual sense and a social sense. So it all made sense to put them all together on this album.
Yeah. The album's been probably a couple months old by now. How is it doing for you?
It's, it's getting a lot of coverage out there. I've been doing a lot of calls like the one I'm doing with you today. A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of radio interviews. I'm getting airplay in certain parts of the country, and the record company is still working it, and we're working on some pretty exciting things that we're hoping are going to come through. Hopefully, some TV things over the next 6 to 8 weeks, which I really don't have the liberty to talk about right now. But things are happening. Things are happening with that, and things happening with Vanilla Fudge. We have a bunch of concerts coming up over the next few months. So we're keeping the old band rocking, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And just trying to stay busy.
Will there be any solo live shows to promote this album?
Well, actually, in September, I'm doing a solo show. It's called World Stage. That's in Illinois. And the great Jim Peterick is a really talented songwriter. He wrote Eye of the Tiger, a big song from the Rocky movie for the band Survivor. And he's also been involved with some big songs with 38 Special. He's also the leader of a very cool classic band called the Ides of March. And he has an annual show called World Stage, and he invited me to come and I'd be one of the featured artists on that. So I'm going to do a couple of Fudge classics and 2 songs for my solo album. And they're great musicians and singers, so they're going to back me up on my music. And I'm hoping Kathy Richardson, the lead vocalist from Jefferson Starship, is going to be there, and Jennifer Batten from Michael Jackson fame, the really hot guitar player, and some other you never know who's going to stop by. Jim Peterick has this thing where he has a surprise guest, somebody like really famous. But that's going to be cool. So that's a opportunity I wanted to take advantage of, and we'll see how it all goes.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Now that I think of it, how come there never was a Mark Stein solo album before?
Well, I had an album that I self-released called White Magic way back around 2001, which was like the singer-songwriter side of me at that time. So I guess, I just been working on different projects with bands over the years, and I always end up back in the mothership band called Vanilla Fudge. So I think all the members of the band do basically the same approach, and we always end up playing together again. So, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
In addition to new music that you're now promoting, you also have a biography out, right?
Oh, it's a biography, my book. Yeah, I'm glad you
Can
brought
you
that
talk
up.
about
It's
that?
it's a book called "You Keep Me Hanging On: The Raging Story of Rock Music's Golden Age." Yeah, and it's actually been out a number of years, and I collaborated with Professor Larry Schweikart, who had a whole lot of history books out there. One was like #1 on the New York Times bestseller list a number of years ago, A Patriot's History of the United States. And he was actually I found out he was a big fan of mine and my band from years ago when we were kids. And he sent me that book and he autographed it. And at the time I was thinking about writing a book, but I was ironically thinking of somebody to collaborate with. So I sent him an email. I said, would you be interested in working with me? Because I think I need somebody to help me write this book. And he got excited about it. And 3.5 years later, you know, we had a book. And the book is really cool. It examines early days of rock and Vanilla Fudge's role in classic rock. You know, the Jimi Hendrix story, because we played with Hendrix, you know, in the late 60s. And of course, Led Zeppelin, people don't know, they actually opened for Vanilla Fudge when they first came to America, and we were, you know, really enjoying a lot of success. So Zeppelin's first 2 tours was with Vanilla Fudge. So it was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Hang on for me. What's that? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm sorry about that.
That's life.
I keep screaming down the hall here.
Changing the topic for a bit. Tell me about your involvement with Tommy Bolin in 1970s.
That's a good question. I had moved out to California in the early 70s after Vanilla Fudge first broke up in the early 70s. And I was basically writing songs. And actually, I really loved Elton John back in those early days when he first came out. So I wanted to kind of be Elton John. I started writing songs and, you know, brushing up on my piano chops and all. And I was collaborating with different songwriters when I moved to LA, and things really weren't happening for probably about a year or so, 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. And I wanted to get back to the stage. And I was actually putting together a solo band. And it was Reggie McBride, who was the bass player with Stevie Wonder, who was going to join my new solo band. And he actually had this opportunity to go play with this cat, Tommy Bolin, who was probably one of the hottest young guitar players that was fresh out of Deep Purple around 1974, 75. And he called me up and he said, Mark, you know, we're going to have to bypass this band right now because he just offered me a slot in his band. And it looks like it's going to be a really, really happening thing with all these great players. I said, you know what? I said, tell Tommy that I want to come down and play with him. So he called me up and said, yeah, Tommy said, come down. We'll have a play down at SIR in LA. So that's what I did. And before you know it, we had a couple of jams and we really dug each other. And I loved his guitar playing, and he was fond of my keyboard work from the Fudge. And that was it. And then we started rehearsing. And then Michael Walden was fresh out of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and he showed up at rehearsal, and that's when we met. God, we were so young then. Was it like 75? And this really cool chick, Norma Jean Bell, who was fresh out of Frank Zappa's band, was a great singer and killer sax player and really cool looking. And what a band that was, man. What a combination of musical styles. You know, you had me from classic rock, you had the funk and R&B from Reggie from the Stevie Wonder thing, of course, Tommy Bolin, and, the progressive jazz fusion from Michael Walden, Narda. And it was quite a band. And there was a lot of excitement about that band. And the first major show we did was at the Roxy in LA, and that place was wall to wall. Everybody who was anybody was at that show that night, and we killed it, man. It was really, really cool. And we went on and started causing a big buzz in the business, and a lot of people were following that band. We played a bunch of shows throughout America. I guess the biggest show he played was opening for Peter Frampton during his monster year when Frampton Comes Alive was, selling a million gazillion records. So we opened for Frampton at Mile High Stadium in front of 50,000 people. And what a day that was. It was an amazing show. People loved it. And, we opened for Carlos, Santana and Albuquerque. So it was a really well-respected band, and Tommy was really well-respected. Unfortunately, he was plagued by some very serious demons, which eventually cost him his life at the tender age of 25. So it was a very, very, very sad tale because he was one of the most innovative guitar players and songwriters of his time. And Lord only knows if he had lived over the next, up until now, the great songs and music and bands he would have been in. Lord knows, what he would have came up with. But even today, his legacy is still strong all over social media. So that's my Tommy Bolin story.
What did you like best about Tommy?
He was just really a sweetheart of a guy. Like I said, when he just had a problem with alcohol and drugs and just, just had a hard time getting over it. He just, he couldn't beat it. And it was just really too bad because when he wasn't screwed up, he was the sweetest guy. He had a really very warm heart. It was really fun hanging with him. He had a really great sense of humor. And again, when he came up with the songs for his last album on Columbia, I think it was, Private Eyes, we recorded that at Cherokee, and I was happy I was involved in that, keyboard wise, and I added a lot of my vocal arrangements to that production, which I think is a very cool album. Dennis Mackay, who produced that album, I thought did a fantastic job producing it. Even if you listen to it today, all these years after, it's very unique sound, very sexy. It's got a lot of really cool rock and jazzy things. It's a very cool sound. So anybody that hasn't heard it, you ought to check it out. Private Eyes, Tommy Bolin, definitely.
Instant classic, definitely.
Yeah.
Speaking of your other band, Vanilla Fudge, you mentioned that Vanilla Fudge broke up. In fact, that band broke up a few times. Why did that band keep on breaking up when you had such a tremendous influence on bands that went on to be massive? And yet I felt like Vanilla Fudge created that sound and got a little bit left behind.
Well, you're right. That's the sad irony of it. We were there. We dared to be different. We came out with our very first album. Nobody ever heard arrangements like that. Nobody heard songs being completely rewritten, rearranged, reimagined the way we did in a symphonic, psychedelic rock approach that we had. A lot of dynamics, a lot of drama. Each song we just created a mood and a play, and almost visually you could, George Harrison was a big fan of the Fudge. He loved that first album. He loved the way we rearranged Eleanor Rigby and Ticket to Ride. And the Supremes loved You Keep Hanging On, Holland Dozier in Holland. That's to this day, it's their favorite version of it. And I do believe that we had a lot to do with the beginning of progressive rock, because a lot of bands followed us and followed in our footsteps in terms of, daring to be different. Instead of just writing a 3-minute song, gave you the opportunity to be as creative as you want to be. And underground radio gave us the opportunity to be heard in those days, which was really cool. We broke up in 1970 because we got tired of each other, frankly. We were constantly touring and touring and touring, and we never got too many breaks. And I guess we finally did get a break from each other when the band broke up for the first time, But it's the same story with a lot of bands from that era that broke up. It's a tough thing. It's tough enough being married to one woman, but being married to 3 to 4, collectively is on a long-term basis. It's not an easy task, But we did reform several times, and probably since 2005, we've basically been, the core of the band has been back together touring since '05. Yeah. And Tim Bogut, God rest his soul, he had retired about 10 years before he passed away, which was a year ago, January, that he passed. But Pete Bremy, who used to be part of our road crew and was an idol of Tim Bogut, was a pretty good bass player. And his dream, I guess, was to be in Vanilla Fudge, and his dream came true eventually. And he does a great job playing all of Tim's parts. And he's been with us now, I guess, going on 11 years. And he sings all the high harmony parts as well. So it works. Yeah. It works. I mean, we've been doing shows, and we came off the road a few months ago, and we have some new shows coming up, actually. Well, in July, we have some shows, and they're working on shows for late summer. We have stuff in the fall coming up, but yeah, we're still rocking, you know. People are still digging it.
Yeah, I had seen you play a few years ago, and it was still as intense as it's ever been.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. That's cool.
Finally, now that you're a newly established solo artist,
hey,
right? Drum roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any chances for a follow-up solo album?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. I have some songs that I've written, and I have some other songs that I was working on, and probably over time, God willing, I'll do another solo record. Why not? Why not? As long as people still want to hear my music, and as long as I can be creative, I'll just keep singing and writing and performing as long as I can do it. So far, so good.
Thank you, Mark, for speaking to me, and good luck with everything you do, and do it for as long as you can.
Thank you, Mark. And everybody be safe out there, and come and see Vanilla Fudge. You know, come and look at vanillafudge.com and look for tour dates, and come and rock with us, okay?
Thank you.
All right. And I'm glad everything worked out.